Hi everyone. In Lab 7, we're actually going to do a real good review of descriptive statistics. And this week we're going to just use Excel. We're not going to use JASP. So make sure that you have your Excel program ready to rock and roll. You can use the numbers program or Google Sheets, I think, or all the different ways that you can do this. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is download the data set. So I will do that. And it's my Lab 7 data. It's an Excel sheet. And what I'm going to do is at the very get-go, I'm going to save it to my computer because I don't want to lose it. Any of the work that I do, I want to make sure saves. So I'm going to save it to my desktop. There you go. The next thing I'd like you to do, if you haven't done so already, is download the lab instructions because we're going to be going through these. And I'm going to walk you through every step of this lab. So I want you to be successful with it. I want you to have good practice. I'm not trying to catch you, doing something wrong. Absolutely not. I want to give you a success experience. So in this lab, we're actually looking at the same data we looked at before, but sort of a contracted version of it. I think the Better Life data set that we worked with previously had more subjects in it, but this data set only has 80 people in it. So we've opened the file, and the first step says to insert a new column in between post-coping and treatment days variable. And in this column, compute a new variable called diff. And I'm going to create this column by subtracting the pre-coping scores from the post-coping scores. In other words, it's post-coping minus pre-coping. We can do this. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to insert a new column. How do I do that? I'm going to click on the column that is in front of where I want to insert the column. I'm going to right-click and just click on Insert, and that will get you a column. Now, if you have any trouble with this at all, then just take the column that you want to move, cut it, and then paste it right next door. So whatever works for you, just make sure that you have a column. Now I have my diff column. What did it ask me to do again? It asked me to take my post-coping scores and minus my pre-coping scores. I do this first by telling Excel that I want to do math by putting an equal sign. I'm going to select the first post-coping score, hit a minus sign, and hit the first pre-coping score and hit return. Now if I did my math right, 55 minus 45 should be 10, worked like a charm. What I'm going to do now is hover over this first box until I get a little black cross, and then I'm just going to drag it down. And this should populate the different scores for all of the rest of them. And it did. So let's just take a couple and double check. I'm going to double click on this. Yes, it took this score minus that score. I'm going to hit return. All right, so I have now a set of different scores. Let's see what is the next step in the directions. So it says make 3 additional tabs with the following labels: central tendency, variability, and probability. Okay, I can do that. I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. How do you create a new tab at the bottom? Well, there's a little plus sign here. So I'm going to click on the first plus sign. And in order to rename it, I'm going to right-click on the name that's there right now, Sheet 1. I'm going to rename the first one to Central Tendency. And then I'm going to add another one, so I'm going to click on this button again. Now I have Sheet 2, I need to rename it. This one I'm going to call Variability. And one more we need to do. I'm going to right-click it and rename it and call it Probability. All right, so I have all of my new sheets ready to go, but I'm going to come back to my raw data sheet here. Let's see what the directions say to do next. It says format all the numeric variables to 2 decimal places. Okay. Well, the first variable that has numbers in it is ID, but that's not a numeric variable. Remember, ID is more of a category. You're person 1, you're person 2. It's a label, it's a value label, it's not a numeric label. But age is indeed a numeric. So I'm going to click on it, right click, format my cells for a number at 2 decimals and hit OK. And now I have 2 decimals all the way down. That worked. I have the same for arrests, pre-coping, post-coping, diff, and treatment days. But I'm going to show you a little trick. You can do these one column at a time if you want, but I'm going to select the arrest column. Then I'm going to hold down on the control button and I'm going to select the other columns. That's a way that I can do this while skipping this treatment column, which is a nominal variable. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to Format Cells. I'm going to hit Number, 2 decimal places, and hit OK. And so now I have all of the numeric variables to 2 decimal places. All right, let's see what's next. So now it says to follow the directions for each tab. So we can do this. On the central tendency sheet, copy over the columns for each of the continuous variables, number of arrests, diff, and treatment days. Okay. So I'm going to highlight the number of arrests first. I'm going to hold the control button down and select diff and treatment days as well. If you want to copy them one column at a time, you can certainly do that. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on copy. I'm going to come to my central tendency tab and I'm only going to just once click on the top left corner, just once. I don't want to have there be a cursor in that box because that'll mess it up. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste, but if I just do a regular paste, that's perfect. If I do some of these other pastes, I start to lose my formatting a little bit. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to come back and just do a regular paste. There you go. All right, so we were asked to find the mean using the formula and the Excel command. So I'm going to show you how to do something that will help you to kind of set up your page a little bit. Click on column A and right click on insert. You want to insert another column here because it'll help you to keep track of things. You don't have to do it this way, but I think this is helpful. Come to the first blank row and type in sum. Come to the next blank row and type in mean. And the third row, type in average. Because we're going to find the central tendency, or the mean, basically 2 ways, through the formula and through the Excel command. So the formula says we need to add up all of the scores first and then divide them by the n. So how do we do this in Excel again? Well, first I'm going to come to the box where I would like the sum to be. I'm going to hit equals, and I'm going to type in the word sum, but then I have to double click on that word sum. And now it says, okay, sum what? So I'm going to come back up to the top. I'm going to click on the first arrest and drag it down. I'm dragging it down. Whoop. And I want to make sure that I don't go any further than the last person on the list. And then I'm going to hit enter. And that just added up all of these different arrests. So there were 246 arrests total. We need to divide that by the number of people in the group to figure out what the average number of arrests were. And so it looks like we have 81, but do we have 81 in this set? Well, we don't, because we actually started with number 2. So how do you figure out the total n when you have a start number and an end number? Well, I'm going to show you a quick formula. You probably already know this. I'm going to do an equal sign. I'm going to take the top number of 81, I'm going to subtract the bottom number of 2, and then I'm going to add 1 to that number. So basically, if you take the higher number of the count on Excel and you subtract the lower number of the count and you add 1, that gives you the n. Now, if you could go through and count them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would equal this 80 right here. So our n is 80. So keep that in mind for the rest of this. We're always dealing with an n of 80. So we're going to take the sum of our arrests, which is equals, and I'm going to click on 246, and I'm going to divide it by 80 and hit return. And that gives us a mean number of arrests of 3.08. Now, probably that's correct, but I'm going to do a check using Excel. So I'm going to do something first, however, Excel is magic. I've said this before. If I click on this sum and I find the little black cross and I drag it over, it just did the sum for the other two columns. Pretty great. Same thing here. If I take this corner and I drag it over, it'll populate with the other means as well. Well, do I really know that this is correct? I want to make sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the equal sign, and Excel doesn't use the word mean, it uses the word average. So I'm going to double click on average, and I'm going to scroll up to the top. I'm going to select arrests. I'm going to drag down, and I'm going to make sure I don't accidentally include the sum and the mean. That would be bad. So I only go to this last person on the list, and I hit return, and lo and behold, my average was the same. I'm going to show you two other ways using Excel to find the average, but you could use just this same way if you want. For the next column, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hit enter, but this time I'm going to come to formulas. I'm going to come to insert function, and I'm going to type in the word average. And there it is. It's here. So I'm going to hit OK. And that's just another way to find the average function. I'm going to come up to the top. I'm going to select the first one and drag down. When I'm dragging down, I didn't lift up my finger. I kept my finger down. I'm at the last one on the list. I didn't accidentally include these other two. And I'm going to hit OK. And good, that was the same. Okay, here's the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter. And this time, depending on your version of Excel, there might be the word average here. I'm going to click on that. It says average of what? Come up to the top, scroll all the way down to the bottom without accidentally including my sum and my, there you go. Hit return. All of my sums and my averages and everything are correct. Okay, let's go see what our directions say next. So for the variability sheet, we're going to copy over just the diff column, and then we're going to calculate the population standard deviation. In other words, we're going to have n in our formula instead of n minus 1. We're going to have the following columns. We're going to have the deviation score, the score minus the mean, the deviation squared column, and then we're also going to have a place for this variance, sums of squares divided by n, and the standard deviation, the square root of the sums of squares divided by n. And then we're also going to check it using the standard deviation for the population formula. All right, let's have at it. I'm going to come back to my raw data, and it said to copy over the diff column, so I'm going to select it, right-click it, copy. I'm going to come to the variability tab, but this time I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to do something different. I'm not just going to paste the first default paste, because I lose the formula that we used to create the diff column. Remember, the diff column was post-coping minus pre-coping, and we lost that when we come to a different page. So you have to use this paste right here. It's called the values pasting. It has the little numbers 1, 2, 3, and if you click on that, it keeps all of your numbers intact. So we needed to do it that way. All right, we were asked to make some columns, so I'm going to do, the first column is the score minus the mean. I'm not going to use this fancy symbol. We'll just have the score minus the mean. And then this one, we're having the score minus the mean squared. Again, I'm not making it fancy. And what is this going to give us? Well, this is going to give us the sums of squares, which we're going to divide by n to get the variance. So actually, I'm going to write the word variance in here so we can remember that sums of squares divided by n is the variance. And the standard deviation is going to be the square root of that. Okay, you're like, where's the square root button? I'm going to come to insert, I'm going to go to symbol, and it happens to be one of my recently used symbols. I'm going to go ahead and insert that there. All right, but don't feel like you have to, it inserted twice. Don't feel like you have to put that square root symbol. If you want to type in the word square root, that's fine. And that's going to be SS divided by N is our standard deviation formula. Hopefully this is all review from lesson 4. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take each score and subtract the mean. Well, we had the mean in the other page, central tendency. I'm going to come back and just grab it. So the mean for the different scores was 20.59. I'm going to copy it. So when I paste it, it's just like when we pasted the different scores. I have to paste it as a value. If I paste it just regular, it's going to lose its formatting because it's a calculation. We calculated this number on the previous page. So, and then I'm just going to format it to be 2 decimal places because that's me. All right, now what we can do is we can take each score and subtract the mean. I'm going to show you a trick on this in Excel. So obviously what you could do is you could do equals, you could take this score minus the mean and hit return. And then you could do the same for this one, hit equals, take the score minus the mean, and so on. You could do that, but there's an easier way to do it. And that is by taking this formula that you just did in the box above, and E2 is where the mean is. We can tell Excel to keep E2 constant by putting a $ before the E and the $ before the 2. Basically what that says is for all of these columns, make sure that we're subtracting box E2. So $ means freeze. So now that I've done that, I'm going to drag down all of them. Okay, so let's make sure that it did it right. I'm just going to double click on one of these to make sure that it subtracted the mean. There it is. You can see by the colors that the blue is the score and what's in pink is that mean. So we were able to take each score and subtract the mean. And again, the way that we did that is we held it constant, the mean constant. It's always going to be the thing that's going to be subtracted by putting a $ before the letter and the number of the box that it's in. That means freeze. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to square these deviation scores. That's how we get to sums of squares. We take the first deviation score. I'm going to do a little, I'm going to do shift 6, which is that little top hat, and 2. That just means square it. Now, we don't need to do any $ here because we're going to do the little hat and square to every one of them. So it'll just do it automatically. So I'm going to pull this down. And we've got decimals going all over the place. So I'm going to format it to 2 decimals. You don't have to do that, but I think it's easier to read. So now we have everything to 2 decimals. We have the deviations, we have the deviations squared, and now we have to sum them up. So I'm going to come down to the bottom here and I'm going to do equals and I'm going to type in sum. Oop, I didn't type it in right. And double click on the word sum. Come up to the top. Click on the first one and hold it down. Select them all. And I want to make sure I don't go in the sum column or sum row. I want to make sure that I stop at 81 and hit enter. So that is the sum of all of our squared deviations. So now we have everything we need to find the variance and the standard deviation. Remember that variance is the sum of the squared deviations divided by n, and the standard deviation is just the square root of that variance. So I'm going to come over here where it says variance, I'm going to hit equal, and I'm going to select that sum of squares, sum of squared deviations. I just select it and I'm going to come back up and I'm going to divide it by our n of 80. Because we're using the population formula, we're using n, not n minus 1. So our variance, it looks like, is 7, let me format this to 2 decimals, 77.94. So our standard deviation is going to be the square root of that. So I'm going to type in SQRT to get the square root. I'm going to double click on it. Then I'm going to click on the variance and hit enter. And now I have a standard deviation of 8.8, what is it, 8.83. Okay, so that's a lot of work that I did to get to standard deviation, but now we were asked to use the formula in Excel to double check our work. Formula in Excel is so easy. I'm going to hit equal, and then I'm going to start typing in STDE, that begins the word standard deviation. I'm going to select the one that says .p. Double click on that. And then it says, well, you want to find the standard deviation of what? Well, what am I going to select? I'm just selecting these difference scores. That's what I want to know the standard deviation of. So I select the first one and drag down. And I hit enter. And I'm going to just pray that they are the same. Should we go up? Ah, yes, they are. I'm going to format it to 2 cells. Okay, so what we just did is we found variance, then we found standard deviation, and then we double checked it by using the formula that Excel uses. All right, we are on our way. Let's see what else is next. All right, so probability, we're going to do a couple of different things. We're going to copy over gender, ethnicity, marital status, and treatment columns. Okay, so I'm going to first do that by coming back over here to my raw data, and I'm selecting gender, ethnicity. I'm going to hit the control button, marital, and treatment. I'm going to right click on copy. I'm going to come to my probability, and I'm going to right click and paste. I did just a regular paste will work. All right, let's see what's next. The first thing it says is to sort the data by gender and then calculate the probability of selecting a male from the sample. So I'm going to come back. So how do we sort? Well, we do it in a very specific way. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my data. I can do that by just clicking on this corner button here, or I could do that by coming over and selecting everything. I like hitting the corner button when I know I want everything. I'm going to go to data and I'm going to hit sort. And it's going to say, well, what do you want to sort by? First of all, I need to make sure that my data has headers is selected. And I'm going to sort it by gender. Okay, there you go. And now we need to find the probability of a male. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a P and then I'm going to put male in parentheses. That's the probability of finding a male. So I'm going to figure that out by just figuring out how many males are there out of the total. So this is where using this Excel formula is going to be helpful for you because sometimes it's a little tricky. So how many males do we have? Well, the highest number in our Excel sheet is 81. And the lowest number in our Excel sheet is 38. So 81 minus 38 plus 1 will tell us how many. So we have 44 males. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to do equals 44 divided by 80. That's how we find the probability. The probability of finding a male in this group is 0.55, or we could say there's a 55% chance of finding a male in this group. Okay, so for the next part, I'm going to show you a very special way now to sort, because now we have some information in this column over here. We're going to have to, we can't sort this way anymore. Then we're going to start sorting this, and we don't want to do that. So this time, we're just going to select the rows that we want to sort. Let's go see what we're supposed to sort by. Says sort the data by ethnicity, and then we're going to find the probability of selecting a Caucasian from the group. Okay, so I'm coming back. So I only select the boxes I want to sort. I don't want to sort this. I'm going to click on sort, and I'm going to click on ethnicity. And I'm going to click on OK. It asks me how many Caucasians are there, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a P and then Caucasian. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come down. My Caucasian subjects start at 36 and they go down to 59. So 59 minus 36 plus 1. So we have 24 Caucasian subjects. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit 24 divided by 80, and that equals 0.3. or 30% of the sample are Caucasian. I'm going to get rid of that. The next thing we needed to sort by was marital status, and we're going to find the probability of selecting a divorce subject at random. So I'm going to come back. Again, I'm only highlighting these boxes. I'm going to sort by marital status. And I'm going to make sure my data has headers is selected, hit OK. And I'm looking for divorced, and it looks like they're here. So we have the highest number is 11, the lowest number is 2. I'm just going to do this in my head. 11 minus 2 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So we have 10 divorced individuals. I'm going to find probability, and I'm going to type in the word divorced. And I know that I had 10, right? So I'm going to do equals 10 divided by 80. And that gives us a probability of 0.125, or 12.5% of the group are divorced. I'm going to come back to the last thing we're going to do. You're almost done. We're going to sort the data by treatment type, and we're going to collect or calculate the probability of selecting the traditional treatment. Okay. So again, I'm just selecting what I want to sort. I'm going to go to sort, and I'm going to sort by treatment type. And we were looking at the probability of traditional. All right. So let's see what we have here. And again, if this counting business is weird to you, you can just count them. It doesn't matter to me. So our highest number is 81, and our lowest number is 67. So equals 81 minus 67 plus 1. 15 people. And you can double check it just by counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can do that. So the probability of finding traditional is 15 divided by 80, our total. The probability of somebody having traditional therapy in this group is 0.1875, or 18.75%. This is the lab. So what you want to do is come back to raw data, save your data, and you're going to upload this where you would normally upload your JASP output. This time you're just uploading Excel output. I'm here to help if you have questions. Bring them to the hallway conversation, and good luck. Have a great week.